What's up guys, this is Anime Crossover. I'm back with another episode of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Sage of Six Path Part 3, and if you did enjoy this video, give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more crossover fictions with a twist. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 5. The Surprising. The Island. The silhouette of the beast in its tails is hazy due to the shadows cast by the mountain, but its eye pierces through the blackness. The beast lowered its right hand and dug one of its talons into the earth before channeling its demonic chakra and retracting it. Moments passed before the chakra exploded from the hole, vanishing from view of the ten-tail. A few minutes later, the energy returned to the opening, this time with someone on one knee and its head facing down, as if bowing to the demon. His complexion was frail and his hair was white, giving him the appearance of an elderly man.
The 10 tails laughed as it instructed its follower to rise in the same manner as the latter. As a consequence of the chakra of the 10 tails, his body was surrounded by black chakra. The chakra was reshaping the figure's physique while restoring its youth. The chakra vanished a few seconds later, revealing the follower. The guy was tall, had brown hair, and was wearing spiked arm bracers and gloves. His eyes were closed until he opened them, showing no pupils, all black, and the man was flexing his hands as if he felt stronger and looked up at his new master.
"I have a job for you to complete, and you will not fail," the 10 tails said, a menacing grin on its face.
HSD Universe. Along with the group was crossing the river in their new vehicle, courtesy of Shizuka's friend, to get to the other shore. The busty doctor was driving the Humvee, with Saya in the passenger seat and Rei, Takashi, Naruto, and Saeko in the rear, with Kotha keeping an eye out of the hole in the roof with Alice.
The blonde Jinchuriki was sleeping on his knee, as was the dog, and Saeko was sleeping against his left shoulder. Rei and Takashi were sleeping, the former against Takashi's right shoulder, until she heard Saya scold Kotha for teaching Alice an inappropriate melody and returned to the car seat. The slender martial artist blushed as she glanced at her childhood friend. Then she noticed Naruto and Saeko sleeping together, the former snoring and the latter drooling on the boy's jacket, causing Rei to teasingly wake Takashi. She yanked the boy's face and let it go, slapping the leader awake.
Takashi rubbed his cheek and questioned, "Ow. Rei, why did you do that?" Rei looked at Naruto and Saeko, who were both out of it. "Don't you think they'd make a nice couple?" Rei agreed as she looked at Takashi before waking the blonde ninja in the same way she did her friend.
"Ow, okay. Who's the wise guy who did that?" Rubbed Naruto's cheek. A tick mark emerged on his head when he saw Rei with a smirk on her face. "Are you the one who did it? Must be nice, huh?" Rei teased, perplexing the ninja. "Huh." Naruto blushed as he glanced over his left shoulder to find a drooling Saeko sleeping on him. Soon after, the lady awoke groggily and confused, and she found herself leaning close to Naruto, a blush on her face. For a few minutes, the two gazed at each other before looking away from each other. "Saeko, good morning." "Good morning, Naruto," Saeko said, still blushing as she wiped the drool from her lips. Then they both heard the dog barking, and they both smiled until Naruto glanced at Saeko again. The ninja was about to speak when he heard Kotha summon his name. "Yeah, what did you need?" Alice followed the gun lover as he withdrew his head from the hole. Kotha extended his right arm, closed hand facing upward, then opened it. Naruto noticed a strange black device on the boy's palm and picked it up, closer examination revealing that it tells time, date, month, and year. "What exactly is it, Kotha?" "This, my ninja friend, is a watch, but not just any watch. This is a G-Shock, one of the best watches in the world, and it can help you keep track of your stay here, plus it can be a souvenir for you," Kotha replied, surprising Naruto with the device's features and fitting it perfectly on his left wrist.
The Jinchuriki smiled as he glanced at his new watch, and then the Humvee reached the other side and came to a halt. The men cautiously climbed up the hill with their heads poked out after getting out of the vehicle to stretch their tired bones. "Okay, it appears to be clear on my end. How about you?"
"It's clear," Takashi said, looking at him. "Yeah, but it's too quiet," Kotha thought to himself. He heard screaming and turned to his left just in time to see Humvee tower over Naruto, who dodged out of the path and laughed at the blonde doctor until he calmed down. He's definitely going to make things interesting for us." The men returned to the muscle car, Takashi sitting on the back with Rei before driving off into the distance. Several hours later, the vehicle carrying the survivors was generating a lot of noise, but there was no sign of the walkers or the living, which made Naruto nervous as they continued on their journey. He was seated next to the window behind Saya. Kotha was playing a game with Alice, and Saeko was on the other side of the car. We haven't seen a walker in hours, and I have this unfortunate feeling that something is going to happen. And soon. The ninja was distracted from his thoughts when he sensed a presence next to him and turned to see the female swordsman smiling at him. "Hello, Naruto," Saeko said, her eyes closed, and Naruto smiled back. "Hey, Saeko, how's it going with you, aside from the chaos with the walkers and the deranged people?" Naruto inquired, trying not to stare at the purple-haired girl's bosom and waiting for her response. "Aside from killing the undead, I'm fine, and you?" Saeko asked as she waited for the blonde's response. She found Naruto's irises very appealing and shook her head to keep herself from becoming engrossed in them. The sage replied in kind. "I'm fine, thanks to that nap I took and other things," Saeko said, her cheeks flushed as she realized about the awakening in the morning. "Ha ha ha ha, don't be embarrassed, Saeko, I admit it was a surprise, but you are beautiful, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that," Naruto said, smiling as he looked at the girl, who was blushing even more after the remark, and quietly chuckled to himself. He isn't afraid to express his opinion and integrity to anyone, especially women, and he faced so many difficult obstacles in his childhood that he could have succumbed to the darkness, but he didn't. He's a strong man and a warrior, Saeko reflected after controlling her blush. She opened her mouth to say something, but the vehicle swerved unexpectedly, stunning the pair. They see Shizuka frantically trying to control the vehicle, then feel the car make a sharp left turn as if she believed it would stop the vehicle, but it only makes matters worse. The Humvee was skidding sideways, rapidly approaching a wall, with the sage opening the door. "We're heading for that wall. We need to stop this before." Naruto widened his eyes as he saw Rei fall over the car, frightened, and quickly shunshined. The girl closed her eyes as she approached the ground, bracing herself for the agony that would follow the impact, but she felt nothing but something soft yet hard. Rei opened her eyes to find Naruto carrying her bridal gown and a small blush on her face, so she looked down to conceal it. Naruto, on the other hand, noticed a large group of zombies slouching towards them to his left. Then he saw everyone get out of the car except Shizuka and ready to fight them. The blonde ninja stood up and drew Tenkaichi, who was followed by the girl, who was readying her bayonet-equipped rifle, before he, Rei, and Saeko charged at the walkers while Takashi and Kotha supplied long-range cover fire. The purple hair swung her wooden sword at the first walker's head, then spun around to thrust her weapon into another lunging from her left side, quickly pulling the weapon before jumping over a third one while stabbing the wooden sword into the head and hurling it over her head after landing on the ground, hurtling it through its fellow walkers. She heard a whistle and turned to see Naruto staring at her with a "not bad" expression before swinging his black blade overhead to a walker in his right without looking and charging towards another walker with Rei on his left side. Takashi fired another round at one of the walkers, still providing cover fire for three hand-to-hand combatants while wearing a sadistic expression, until he heard tires screeching from behind the fence wall and turned back to see someone in a firefighter's uniform and a hose. The person dashed up to the wall, aimed the hose at one of the walkers, and unleashed a torrent of water, pushing a row of walkers all the way to the end of the street. "Whose was that?" Kotha inquired. Takashi shook his head. "I don't know, but," he fired another round, "I'm glad they're on our side." The leader of the group continued to observe the warriors tearing apart the walkers as he fired another round. The person wearing the helmet removed the hose, exposing a beautiful woman with long, light purple hair and matching color eyes. When she saw the lady, she gasped and rushed out of the Humvee, surprising Alice, Shizuka, and Zeke when she jumped over the fence and hugged her. "Mommy, it's really you," exclaimed Saya as she sobbed on her mother's bosom. Since she located her daughter and her friends, the woman patted her daughter's head, comforting her with tears in her eyes. There, sweetheart, I'm here now," said the mother, who was still comforting her brilliant daughter as her companion opened the wall. The brown hair swung her rifle around, slashing the walkers around her and kicked two more in the face, but her confidence was dashed when she looked behind to see Naruto slice a walker, cutting it in half in the waistline before charging at another one, and Rei followed the same action by swinging her rifle in another 360 circle, severing the heads of 7 walkers before changing at more walkers. After battling and exterminating the undead for a few minutes, the 3 warriors returned to the Humvee, and their favored gun lover was about to say something when a portal appeared. It resembled the one Naruto found when he arrived in this world, but it was black and purple instead of white. The electricity that surrounded the portal began to react with the environment, striking everything except the teens in their vehicle. The blonde ninja narrows his eyes and grips Tenkaichi as he prepares for whoever is approaching, but his eyes widen in astonishment as he didn't expect to see one of the people who hated him as a child.
Naruto hissed, as the word was poisonous. Everyone was terrified when they recalled their discussion about Naruto's past, recognizing the man in front of them as one of the people who detested the blonde and attempted to kill him when he was younger, and meeting one of the latter's people.
That's Mizuki. Didn't you say he turned into an old man, Naruto? Rei asked, her weapon trembling slightly. That's right, he did turn into an old man, so why is he young again? Wait, that chakra, thought Naruto, continuing to stare at the emotionless ninja in front of him, whose eyes were hidden behind his silver hair. No, it can't be. Kurama, can the 10 tails restore youth or revive someone, because I can sense its demonic chakra emanating from Mizuki? Like I said before, the 10 tails created our world, it seems logical, Kurama responded, though Naruto detected a hint of skepticism in the beast's voice. He was about to say something when he felt his former ally's murderous intent and drew Tenkaichi in front of him.
Guys. Get out of here now, and I'll hold him off while you go back to the house with Saya's mother.
Everyone objected, but they were silenced when their blonde buddy made a serious face over his shoulder before facing forward. So they boarded the Humvee, with Saeko entering last and glancing behind Naruto as she closed the door. The blonde Jinchuriki heard the two vehicles leave, then nothing but a chuckle from his adversary, which quickly changed into laughter. Well, if it isn't the 9 tails himself, Naruto Uzumaki, Mizuki said, raising his head slightly and gazing at the blonde. Like I said back then, I'm not the 9 tails. I'm his Jinchuriki, but I don't care what you think of me, the Uzumaki member realized. Hehe, my master used his chakra to open the portal, allowing me to travel. But he could have done it 2 months ago because he felt a portal opened, Mizuki replied, a menacing grin on his face. Naruto was surprised to learn that it had already been 2 months in his world, but he had only arrived in this world 2 days before, so he chose to speak with his partner. Did you hear what he said, Kurama? Yes, I heard you, and the answer to your question, yes, it is possible, we're in a different dimension, Naruto, so time is either slower or faster in each dimension, haven't you paid attention to the old man's teachings on that? The fox inquired.
Naruto blinked owlishly before nervously laughing, I don't think so.
And what exactly did you mean by that? Kurama growled, slightly startling his partner. Well, you see, I sorta slept through that lesson, Naruto replied nervously, taking care not to show it in front of Mizuki, who was standing with a bored expression. Quote, hello, Kurama, quote, Bud, your silence is creeping me out, say something. Quote, I'll give you the rundown on dimension and time later, wait until I tell the old man about this when I get a chance, he'll be sure to give that exercise for falling asleep during his lessons, the tailed beast replied smugly. Naruto paled slightly as he unintentionally placed his left hand behind his buttocks before retracting it to his side. The wise man groaned, I guess I deserved it, but let's put that aside for now. I've got an enemy to crush, and I'll send him packing. He held up his sword horizontally and flicked it to get the blood off before sheathing it back up on Naruto's back, confusing the former Leaf Jonin before the latter glared at the former. Why did you put your weapon away, demon? Are you surrendering to me? Proudly asked Mizuki. Naruto laughed. Yeah right, like I'm going to surrender to anyone, especially you, so I'll give you a choice. You can leave me alone and enjoy whatever pathetic life you have, or you can face your end right here, right now. Moments passed before the 10 tails follower laughed maniacally before drawing a kunai in the reverse grip and charging at the Uzumaki Jinchuriki. Naruto quickly drew a kunai from his sleeve and charged forward, eager to put his training with the Sage of the Six Paths to use against one of his old foes. When they got close, both shinobi swung their kunai, causing a collision before breaking it and swinging their kunai, causing sparks and causing another clash. The two shinobi were pushing against each other, each attempting to gain the upper hand, but the younger shinobi made no effort and pushed back with force, causing his opponent to skid backwards until he came to a halt a good 30 yards away. Mizuki launched his kunai at the blonde's head, but he was surprised when the latter countered by throwing his own kunai before disappearing from sight. Where did he go? He felt a presence on his right side and raised both arms to stop a roundhouse kick from the reappearing blonde ninja, but the former was sent skidding once more. Curse you! Mizuki yelled furiously, stopping himself for another 30 yards, take this, fire style, fireball jutsu. He exhaled a massive ball of fire hurtling towards the blonde, who leapt into the air, avoiding the jutsu's trajectory and making rapid hand signs of his own. The fire hydrant and pipes on ground level creaked as huge amounts of water exploded and collected below, resembling a waterfall, with the sage directing the assault towards the more surprised Mizuki. The latter also jumped into the air, dodging the assault and preparing another attack as he landed, but he heard a familiar voice. "Too slow," Naruto said as he reappeared behind Mizuki and roundhouse kicked him, who recovered after staggering a few feet and prepared to unleash another technique on the blonde, but he vanished.
How can this be? Mizuki wondered as he searched for the demon, but instead the young Uzumaki materialized in front of him and punched him in the stomach.
The former leaf ninja doubled over with agony in his stomach, which he had never felt before. He slowly raised his head, his teeth clenched and blood dripping from his mouth, gazing at the towering figure of the Jinchuriki who glared at him. Mizuki let his rage get the best of him and threw a straight strike, only for Naruto to catch it by grabbing his wrist and easily spinning him around before hurling his opponent into the air and heading for a building.
"What strength!" exclaimed Mizuki as he collided with the building's exterior, causing a hole.
The former ninja leapt out of the building's hole and clung to the wall a few feet away, searching for the demon. Behind you, Mizuki turned to see Naruto with his arms extended out, wind style, divine down current. A vortex of wind blasted from his hands, plummeting the former ninja to the ground, kicking up dust. Standing on the wall, the Jinchuriki crossed his arms and made a serious expression. Meanwhile, Mizuki was laying in the newly exposed crater, with bruises and scratches on his face, hands, and clothes, as well as water soaking from the broken pipes caused by the impact. He opened his eyes, and rage overtook him as he realized the demon kid possessed both wind style and water style ninjutsu. "This kid is a lot stronger than the last time we fought," the former leaf ninja smirked evilly, "but I've gotten stronger due to my master's chakra within me, and I think it's time to up the ante a little." Along with the group, when they heard the explosion in the distance and became worried for their blonde ninja friend, Saeko poked her head out the window, along with Takashi and Rei at their window and Alice with Kotha peering out the roof hole. "I hope he's okay," Saeko expressed concern. "Don't worry," Kotha said as he entered the Humvee with Alice, followed by Takashi, Rei, and Saeko. From what Naruto has told us about himself, he will not be defeated. He is super strong as a result of his training with that ancestor of his. When they heard this, everyone's hopes rose, but Saeko couldn't help but worry about her new friend and fellow swordsman. "Please, be okay, Naruto. Please." The convoy continued its journey to the Takagi estate. Mizuki vs. Naruto. "He's taking too long. What could he be planning?" Naruto thought to himself as he waited for his adversary. When he felt a burst of chakra emanating from the crater below, his eyes widened slightly. "That's the chakra of the 10 tails, and it's stronger than the last time I felt it. He might give me a warm-up after all." The toad sage smirked and slipped into a taijutsu posture as he waited for his opponent to climb out of the crater until his senses alerted him from behind, where Mizuki was preparing an upward kick, leaving Naruto to block it with his open palms down, but the attack had more force than he expected. The boy was launched into the air before repairing himself in midair and bending his knees to soften the impact on the building, causing spider cracks in the wall and shattering the glass on several floors. "Damn, wasn't expecting that," Naruto said, shaking his hands before back-spinning up to avoid Mizuki's thrust kick, then leaping backwards to the roof, followed by his opponent. The sage took one last step over the edge, leaping high into the air as he prepared to make his next move, but the former leaf Jonin covered in dark chakra materialized in front of him, surprising him. Mizuki smirked and kicked Naruto, who had barely managed to form a X formation to protect his head and upper torso, sending him to the roof. As he was sent skidding across the roof, the latter gritted his teeth and glanced back to see the edge of the roof approaching quickly. "Darn, you're still going too fast." Naruto drew Tenkaichi and stabbed the blade to the ground, but it was too late. The blonde Jinchuriki had already fallen off the roof, causing sections of the roof's edge to fall to the ground. He was presently in the air, looking for his opponent across the building, but he had vanished. He's faster than before, and his strength has increased to the point where he can compete with the initial Jinchuriki form, but I need to wait him out a little longer. As the ninja was being dragged by gravity, his senses alerted him of danger from behind and he spun around to see Mizuki propelling himself from the building across the street and already cocked a left straight punch. The side of the building exploded, revealing Naruto in a body outline crater on the wall while holding Tenkaichi horizontally, currently in a stalemate between weapon and arms as Mizuki stood over him with a surprised look. I'm surprised that you managed to block this attack, and I never expected that you would learn Kenjutsu. Mizuki smirked as he put more force in his left arm, causing Naruto's sword arm to be pushed back before the latter putted the same amount, resulting in another stalemate. It doesn't matter to me. I have my master's chakra within me, and after all this time, you're still weak. So? You think I'm weak? Then I'll spice it up to prove you wrong. Naruto raised his chakra level slightly, surprising his opponent with the energy output before pushing him off and slashed Mizuki in the chest, causing blood to spurt out and leaving a gash. You want to see who the weak one is? Do me a favor. And keep using that chakra from now on. The blonde vanished from sight, and reappeared in front of Mizuki. The impact of the sword and arm clash created a small shockwave, and the two warriors exchanged death glares before disappearing and reappearing in different locations away from their initial battleground while clashing their weapons, causing craters in multiple buildings. After a few minutes, the two ninja reappeared on the roof of a building a few miles distant, standing 15 yards apart with the blonde holding his sword. The latter's clothes were dusty, and he didn't appear tired at all. Mizuki, on the other hand, was panting heavily, had beads of sweat on his forehead as well as cuts on his arms from the boy's sword, and his muscles were flinching, much to the discomfort of the latter, before slipping into a taijutsu posture. I must say, I'm impressed that you can keep up with me while I'm using my master's chakra, but that won't last long, Mizuki assuredly. Naruto lowered his weapon after a few seconds of silence. You're right, it won't last long, at least for you, he said, perplexing his opponent before infuriating him. What do you mean? Explain, demanded Mizuki before falling to his knees in excruciating agony as the dark chakra dissipated, leaving him confused and frightened. That's what I meant. I sensed that chakra was putting too much strain on your body, and I knew you'd eventually deplete it, and now it leaves your body in severe pain, Naruto replied as he began walking towards his downed opponent, who sat on his knees with his head on his knees. The ninja was within arm's reach, his sword arm and free arm by his sides, his shadow looming over the adversary, who raised his head and gave the blonde a hateful glare.
Do you think this is over, demon brat? I'll kill you, exclaimed Mizuki as he lunged at the teenager, disregarding the pain. He tried to headbutt the blonde but was stopped by a sharp pain in his chest and glanced down. The black blade pierced him through the heart, and shortly darkness surrounded his eyes, and he felt nothing after that.
Naruto drew Tenkaichi away from the former leaf ninja, causing the lifeless body to collapse to the ground, and flicked his blade to remove the blood before sheathing it. His eyes widen in surprise as the body turns to dust, just like the Uchihas and his erstwhile Jinchuriki friend. I'm afraid this isn't over yet, Kurama. Far from it, kid. Far from it, the fox replied, you should get moving to let the others know you're safe. It's almost night. Naruto nodded as he ran to the edge of the roof while channeling chakra to his feet and leapt across to the next building, continuing to leap from building to building. In collaboration with the Takagi estate group, the group had eventually arrived at the Takagi mansion on the hill as night fell. It was heavily guarded, with men carrying a variety of weapons keeping guard on the walls. The teenagers, Alice and Zeke, met Saya's father, the organization's leader, in the house and were both intimidated by him and felt an intense aura surrounding him. Following the greetings, the group ate, took a warm shower, and went to bed for another night of slumber, but one remained awake. Saeko was in her pajamas, her knees close to her bosom, and the moonlight shined through the window into her room, causing her shadow to emerge from her body. She looks out the window, worried about a certain blonde male in her thoughts. I hope you're all right, and safe, the swordswoman said before pulling the sheet over her head and falling asleep. Returning to Naruto, felt like someone was talking about me, Naruto observed as he gazed out at the city's illuminated streets. He was seated on a building near the street, taking a break after his fight with Mizuki. He was pleased that his training with Sage of the Six Paths had paid off and that the former Jonin had given him a good exercise before calling it quits. Naruto channeled chakra to his feet and leapt from building to building, aiming for the Takagi estate on the hill, after 10 minutes, thanks to the watch on his left wrist. Every time he jumped to the next building, he could see it and couldn't wait to see his pals again. Let us in, yelled someone. Get behind me, honey, yelled another, followed by a gunfire. The Jinchuriki turned to the left, landed on his intended building, and sprinted to the source of the sounds, ultimately coming to a halt at the edge of a building. He looked down to see 3 women and a man with guns, with the exception of the one banging on the door, demanding entry into the building to flee a few walkers who were approaching. Naruto dashed in front of the group, surprising them with his appearance. He drew his blade and swung it while channeling his wind chakra, sending a wave of blue energy towards the walkers, cutting the undead at the heads and this time falling dead. The ninja dashed to the other side of the group, duplicating his action at the last group of walkers before turning around to face the survivors. "Is everyone okay?" the youth inquired as he sheathed Tenkaichi. He got no response, and Naruto assumed that they were either shocked by his actions or had trust issues. After a few minutes, the group's member broke it.
"We're fine, thank you. Who are you and how did you do that?" the man inquired.
"My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and as for what I did, I'll explain later," the sage said, waiting for each of them to respond. "My name is Asami Nikauka," the small woman responded. She has short, light brown hair, blue eyes, and was equipped with a pistol. She was also wearing a blue skirt that matched her uniform. "My name is Kiriko Miyamoto, and this is my husband, Tadashi Miyamoto," the woman said, pointing to her partner with her free left arm, then to the woman with black hair and brown eyes next to the blonde ninja, "and she is Myra Kimuro." Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when the people introduced themselves as his friend's parents, and he remembered them talking about finding their parents. "You're Takashi and Rei's parents." The parents were startled when the blonde teenager mentioned their children's names, and they immediately asked him where they were. Before speaking, Naruto raised his palm to silence them. "I'm a member of their group. We got separated due to unexpected circumstances. I know they were heading for Takagi's mansion on the hill, and they're probably over there right now as we speak." He saw the light of hope and happiness in the parents' eyes, then heard growling behind him. Except for Naruto, who glanced over his shoulder to see a new group of walkers slowly slouching towards them, the group turned to their right. "Come on, let's get out of here and find a safe place to crash for the night, then we'll head to the mansion tomorrow," he said as he ran past the parents, leading the new group of survivors to a temporary safe haven. Naruto's group discovered an apartment that didn't appear to be haunted by the undead after 15 minutes of dodging walkers and running through the streets. According to Kiriko, they obtained one of the rooms that resembled a presidential suite. As they settled in, the parents and patrol officer inquired about the unusual energy used by the young Uzumaki. The latter told the parents about his roots, knowing he could trust them as much as he trusted their children. He noticed the parents' eyes widen and their expressions change to one of admiration for the child. "Thank you, Naruto, for assisting our children and their friends," Myra said, bowing her head. Naruto made a shaky motion with his head. "You can thank me when we arrive at the mansion tomorrow and you're holding your son." The group then went to bed, with the ladies sleeping in one room, the male Miyamoto sleeping in another, and Naruto sleeping on the sofa. Takagi Estate morning. Takashi and his group were dressed normally and having breakfast in the dining hall, which was large enough to accommodate a king's lifestyle. One thing is certain, they're concerned about their blonde ninja friend since he didn't arrive yesterday, and while Kotha assumed the worst, the rest put that thought aside in favor of their faith in Naruto's survival and safety. They became concerned when they heard a loud commotion from the hallways and saw men with rifles running past the dining doors, going towards the main gate. "What's going on?" Alice wondered, alarmed by the situation. Shizuka, who was also terrified, drew her into his arms. Takashi rose from his seat. "Let's go check it out." The group nodded and dashed out to the plaza, near the entrance, where they noticed the men raising their rifles and swords as if waiting for something. To get a better view, the group leader moved closer, just behind one of the soldiers, and put his hand over his eyes to block the sun. 5 shadowy figures continued walking towards the mansion, ignoring the sniper issuing instructions posted on one of the towers. Rei walked alongside her childhood friend to get a closer look at the figures, her eyes widening when she recognized the blonde spiky hair. Naruto. Everyone looked at the Sojutsu martial artist, her companions surprised as she moved closer to the gate, and they cheered when Naruto came into full view and stopped in front of the gate. Takashi and Rei's eyes widened when they noticed their parents and a patrolwoman standing beside him, equipped with weapons. Rei and Takashi ran to their respective parents and embraced them after convincing the men and Saya's father that the 5 people were not infected. They told their children about Naruto rescuing them, and Rei and Takashi both glanced at him. "Thank you, Naruto," exclaimed both teams at the same time. Naruto smiled as he glanced at them. "It was no problem, and I'm glad you and your parents are reunited." The boy was then surrounded by the rest of the group, including the dog, with Alice pulling him into an embrace and the former carrying her, expressing joy at his return. In answer, he smiled at them. "Come on, let's go inside because I'm starving." Everyone grinned at the boy's cheerful personality as they walked inside the compound, with Saeko walking alongside Naruto in the back, questioning him about the man he fought. "I'll tell you and the others about it later," the blonde sage replied softly. Saeko nodded and kept walking next to the boy who was still carrying their youngest member, secretly thanking God for his return. From Naruto's universe, the island Noon. "This will be interesting," the shadow-covered tailed beast chuckled to himself as he watched Mizuki's fight with the Uzumaki member he thought was dead through a tiny portal on his palm. The 10 tails flicked his right palm, and a shadowy figure with a large weapon on his back vanished in front of the beast, bowing to it. "That is very interesting." Takagi Estate morning. A day has passed since Naruto arrived with a new group of survivors, 3 of whom were Rei and Takashi's parents, much to the delight of the teens. The blonde ninja spent his morning practicing in a secluded area near the mansion's estate, making sure no one saw him use his abilities. After the training, he spent the remainder of the day with Saeko, who made him happy when he was near her, and the purple-haired girl did the same when she was near him. Inside his new room, the boy lay on his back on top of his new bed, wearing his black shirt and jeans and gazing at the ceiling. His orange jacket was hung on the chair across from his bed, with his watch, hip pouch, and tenkaichi leaning precisely against it. He was thinking about what Mizuki said about the time difference between the worlds and chose to talk to his partner, so the blonde sat in a lotus position and closed his eyes to enter his subconscious. The mindscape of Naruto. The young Uzumaki emerged in front of his partner's new cave home. He nodded to himself as he glanced around at the improved vast land he had created. The towering fox emerged from his new house, his shadow looming over his human partner, Jinchuriki, staring at him. "So," Kurama broke the stillness. "So," Naruto said, putting his hands in his pockets, "what are we going to do now that the 10 Tails has dispatched his goons to find us?" "I don't think that weak Mizuki was sent here for us," Kurama grumbled. Naruto furrowed his forehead. "What do you mean he wasn't sent here for us? He clearly proved that by calling me by your old name," he says as he crosses his arms and sits cross-legged on the ground. "I believe he was sent here for reconnaissance, or he was looking for something, but I'm not sure what. Unless," pondered Kurama, putting his right index finger and thumbs together as he considered every possible theory. After a few moments, Naruto and Kurama both realized the hypothesis, with the former quickly standing up. The keys. The pair blinked olishly as stillness descended around them. "So you think the 10 Tails knows about the keys as well, huh?" asked Naruto, receiving a nod from his tall partner. "Apparently, you think so as well, but we should double-check," said the tailed beast, laying down on the ground and resting his head on his arms. Naruto agreed with a gesture. "And to do that, we need to capture the next guy the 10 Tails sends, after we beat him. Plus I'm hoping the guy is stronger than Mizuki because he was so weak that he had to rely on the 10 Tails chakra just to gain an advantage over me." He heard the fox chuckle, slightly irritating the boy. "Just your desire to fight equal or stronger opponents amuses me," the fox responded, grinning from ear to ear. His Jinchuriki snorted and crossed his arms, averting his gaze. "Whatever. Oh, before I forget, you promised to explain the time difference between our world and the other worlds we have yet to visit," Naruto said. Kurama agreed with a gesture. "Very well. As that weakling Mizuki said, it was already 2 months in our world when we were in this world for 2 days, you with me." Naruto nodded. "Good, because I don't want to explain this twice. Bridge worlds, like the one we're currently in, are slower than major worlds like ours by 58 days, and also," he stopped when Naruto raised his right hand and groaned. "Yes, what is it?"
"Like our world? You mean our world is one of the major worlds? I thought the sage said there were 4, not 5, the boy, still perplexed, responded.
The fox let out a breath. "It's a secret bestowed upon Old Man Sage by Kami and Shinigami, which he discussed during the lesson in which you fell asleep." "I said I was sorry already," exclaimed the boy, looking away as the tailed beast sighed, pinching his nose bridge. The two were surrounded by stillness until the tailed beast remembered something else. "Naruto," the blonde said again, "we should use this time to help you master that technique while you're here. You're right, but even with my shadow clones assisting me, I'm still having trouble learning the fundamentals." This made Kurama exhale. "Well, You should have mentioned it to the old man while you were training under him, and why didn't you ask him in the first place? Naruto looked irritated at his companion. The answer to your question is that I was too busy with the taijutsu sessions, the elemental training sessions, and finally the history lessons to even bring it up. Okay. Get off my back already, will ya? Don't you take that tone with me, exclaimed Kurama in the same loud tone as his human counterpart, sparking a feud between the two. The yelling and name-calling between the two came to a stop after 10 minutes when Naruto calmed down. Shortly after, he calmed the fox, who was seething between his canines and fangs but finally calmed down. Are you prepared, kid? Naruto smiled maniacally. You bet I'm ready. I won't stop until I master this technique and its variations, he said, pulling a scroll from his pouch and opening it. 12 p.m. with Takashi. Man, this is turning into a long day, Takashi thought to himself. He left to check on his friends and was pleased to see that Kotha and Asami were getting along well. Really well in the garage when the duo were cleaning the guns and the female cop recognized several models of the guns the group cleaned out of Rika's apartment, much to the delight of the male gun fan. When he collected his friends on the porch, they saw Saya's father protest to the civilians about killing the walkers and forgetting that they were once family members or friends because they are no longer human to them. When the rally was over, the group was taken aback by Kotha's sudden outburst and his insults about the armed men with swords, resulting in a fight between the leader and the marksman, with the latter fleeing while stating, "Not going to be that person again." Takashi glanced over when he felt a hand on his shoulder and saw Saya standing there with a scowl. "What's up, Saya?" he asked, seeing her roll her eyes. "Let's meet in Naruto's room, we need to discuss the earlier discussion with the others," said the pink-hair genius. The black-hair man nodded and told the others to meet in an hour at their ninja friend's room, but not before telling Rei to get their parents to meet them as well because they're part of their group. After an hour, the party, which included Rei's parents and Takashi's mother, was standing outside the shinobi's room, with Takashi reluctantly knocking on the door. "Are you in there, Naruto? We need to talk, and everyone is here," the teen leader asked. After a brief moment, they heard the door handle turn and the door open, showing the blonde teenager, dressed in jeans and a black shirt, staring at them. They noticed the boy had small beads of sweat on his forehead, which alerted them to what had happened to him. Naruto observed their expressions and shrugged. "Don't worry, I was just training when you called me. Come in, everybody." Everyone followed the boy inside the room, with Zeke running around in circles before jumping on the bed and Alice petting the puppy. Takashi began the conference as soon as everyone had settled in. "Saya and I brought you all here because we discussed an important matter earlier and we thought you all should know about it and give us your opinions," Naruto explained, as the group raised their brows in confusion. "You want to know if we want to stay here in the mansion or if we should leave, am I right?" asked the boy, crossing his arms, surprising his two friends with his knowledge of the subject as well as the rest of the group with their choices. Takashi asked, "How did you know?" After a few blinks, Naruto exhaled and rolled his eyes. "Because it's obvious, at least to me," he said as he turned to face his female swordsman friend. "You look really beautiful in that kimono, Saeko. Do you know that?" He noticed a small blush on the girl's cheeks and couldn't help but chuckle at her blushing. Thank you, Naruto," Saeko said, still blushing slightly, until she heard the blonde sage tell their leader and genius to continue the meeting and argument. Shizuka and Asami objected, and the group decided to depart the mansion at the end of their meeting. Takashi and Rei anticipated their parents to disagree with their plan at first, but instead they and their friends received compliments and praise from adults for their maturity and rapid progression to young adults. The group was about to leave the room when Naruto halted them, saying he needed to talk about something else. "What is it?" Rei inquired, worried. Naruto was about to say something, but Saeko interrupted him. "Doesn't it have something to do with Mizuki, the man you fought 2 days ago?" She got a slow nod from the shinobi, becoming concerned for her friend as well. "Yes, it's about Mizuki and other things. When all of you left, the 10 Tails gave that guy back his youth." Naruto continues, "Just before we fought, he said 2 months had passed in my world." "What? How is that possible? You've only been here for 2 days," exclaimed Saya, as she was taken aback by her team members' new knowledge. Naruto exhaled and reached into his pockets. "I know that, and there's a good chance the 10 Tails will send someone else, today." He heard gasps from the teenagers and saw shocked expressions on the adults' faces as he waited for everyone to process this information. Someone else coming here today. Will this person be stronger than Mizuki? Kotha asked, his voice trembling slightly. Everyone was waiting for the blonde teen's next response. Naruto frowned slightly as he considered a sensible response, but could only come up with one. To be honest, I'm not sure if the next guy will be stronger. The Toad Sage grins, but I'm hoping that he'll be a challenge for me. Everyone is surprised by the boy's excitement for a powerful opponent until Saya's surprised expression is replaced by rage. Are you kidding me? What if this person is stronger than you? Exclaimed Saya. Naruto flinched and used his pinky to double-check his ears. First and foremost, don't do that again, I need both of my ears. Second and foremost, I don't doubt the 10 tails will send someone whose strength is equal to or greater than mine. That's why I train constantly every day, to keep my strength up and to raise it to greater heights. The Uzumaki looked from each member of his group, and all of them had doubts on their minds and faces. Hey, everyone, I'm Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf Village, and I'm not going to let the 10 tails or his followers hurt any of you, especially if one of his goons beats me. Saeko couldn't help but laugh at the blonde's antics, and she soon noticed her companions laughing at the ninja as well. A loud growl erupted in the room, scaring Alice out of her bed and into Shizuka's embrace. Everyone in the room was looking around for the source of the noise as the duo shook in terror. Naruto rubbed his midsection as he chuckled sheepishly. Sorry about that, guys, I didn't eat breakfast this morning, want to get some grub? He got nods from his companions and a happy bark from the dog, so the ninja walked over to his gear. The Leaf Shinobi repositioned his hip pouch and watch and moved to take his black blade and scabbard, but he was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. He turned around to find himself confronting Saya, who was glaring at him with her hands on her hips. What? You can't carry your sword around the mansion, you're lucky my father let you keep it, Saya replied while adjusting her glasses. Naruto rolled his eyes as he pulled a tiny piece of paper from his hip pouch with his left hand, inserted it into his right wrist, and seized Tenkaichi by the scabbard. When the Jinchuriki saw everyone's eyes widen in astonishment, he put the black sword on top of the paper and channeled chakra into it, resulting in a puff of smoke and the weapon gone. For those of you who are wondering, it's fuinjutsu, or sealing techniques. I sealed my sword into this small paper, and now I'm armed without anyone outside this room even knowing it. Now, let's get something to eat, because I'm starving. The young Uzumaki grabbed his jacket and put it on before following his friends out of the room and closing the door behind him because he was the last one to leave. The party went into the kitchen, prepared their food, and sat down at the large dinner table. While chewing his sandwich and telling his friends about Konoha's vast lands encircled by tall trees with numerous leaves that gave his home village its name, Naruto was mesmerized by the dining hall's decorations and design. He also mentioned taking them to his home after his mission was done, which brought smiles and cheers from everyone. Naruto, Kotha said to the sage who turned to face him, I've been meaning to ask you this and you didn't mention it during your explanation, but... Naruto leaned a little as he waited for the chubby teenager to finish his statement.
But what? Just spit it out. How old are you, anyway? Everyone except Naruto blinked and turned their heads at the ninja.
Oh, I'm 17, Naruto answered simply. His birthday occurred during his 6-month training with the Sage of the Six Paths, and it was the most extravagant party he had ever witnessed. He nodded to everyone and continued eating. Naruto took one last mouthful of his sandwich before noticing two figures standing behind him and looking over his left shoulder to see two men armed with swords attached to their belts. How are you? Mr. Takagi wishes to speak with you, the man on the right said. The Jinchuriki raised his brow as his companions muttered amongst themselves until Saya addressed one of the men. Why does my father want to talk to Naruto? The man on Naruto's left side responded to her question. I'm not sure why, just that he ordered us to bring Uzumaki, now if you'll just come with. He stopped when he couldn't see the boy in his chair and looked around the room frantically, then stopped when he heard chuckling from the others, who simply shrugged. The two men left the room to look for the blonde ninja, grumbling about how the adolescent had gotten under their noses. Roof of Takagi Estate, Suichiro Takagi, the intimidating leader of the Takagi mansion home, stood close behind the edge, hands behind his back and his katana blade slung around his waist, gazing out at the city. He felt a breeze behind him and turned around to see the blonde teenager alone, without the men he had sent to collect him. Both men were staring at each other with emotionless expressions on their features. So, Naruto says, breaking the intense silence, what did you want to talk to me about? He crosses his arms as he awaits the man's response. 2 days ago, when my wife discovered my daughter in your group, a portal appeared. He saw Naruto widen his eyes slightly, and a man walked out of the portal, dressed strangely, but one thing that made sense was the headband he wore. And it looks similar to the one you're wearing on your forehead now.
The blonde sage's irises narrowed, and then what?
Who are you, really, and most importantly, are you a threat? Suichiro asked, grasping his sword's base hilt and staring at the adolescent. After a few moments, Naruto drew his arms to his sides and replied to the man's query. No, I'm not a threat to you or my friends. That guy who came through the portal was an old foe of mine. We're not from here, and that's all you need to know. Suichiro clenched his teeth as the boy provided him limited information, knowing that the teenager would not budge on anything else. He looks into the blonde's blue eyes and sees years of struggle and hardship, but resolved to find out more from him one way or another. Very well, that's it. For now, Suichiro murmured at the last 2 words. The kid nodded and turned around, walking to a nearby door and entering it, leaving a furious Takagi behind. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I think I'll go train some more, Naruto thought as he reached the 3rd level of the mansion. He dashed to the end of the corridor, opened the window, and turned away from the trees. Secret training ground. The youngster reappeared in the midst of his hidden training facility. He created the hand signs for the alarm seal he used back at the apartment to keep no one from spying on him while he was training. The ninja cracked his knuckles and crossed his fingers, shadow clone jutsu. Puffs of smoke surrounded him and quickly dissipated, showing 30 clones of the Uzumaki member appeared around the original, who smirked after unleashing the technique. Alright, guys, let's get this training session started. Yes sir. The air in nearby area were soon filled with shouts and yells from the multiple Uzumakis as they train hard to become stronger like their original. After 3 hours, oh, man, what a workout. Naruto was walking with his jacket slung over his left shoulder in a water container he had taken from the kitchen fridge. The training exercise with his shadow clones was inferior to that of the Sage of the 6 Paths, but it helps to maintain and increase his strength. He took another gulp as he ascended the steps to the 2nd floor, then turned right to his room at the end of the corridor. Naruto exhaled, frustrated. Man, I'm still struggling with the basics. Why does the technique have to be so difficult to learn? I'll worry about it later. He entered his room and made his way to his bed, intending to relax, but stopped when he smelled himself and anime tears streamed down his face. Phew, man, I reek bad. Hee, guess that's what I get for training so hard, the boy exclaimed as he quickly threw his jacket on the chair next to him, then unsealed Tenkaichi and crumbled the paper because it was only good for one use. Before entering the bathroom, the boy put his sword and watch on top of the table and took a shower after undressing. After 20 minutes, the boy emerged from the restroom, a towel wrapped around his waist and a smile on his face. Man, that felt good, and I can't think of anything else. Naruto heard a knock on his door. Can you tell me who it is? Can Takashi and Saya come in? Inquired the former. Wait a minute, the blonde male went to his hip pouch and unsealed his leaf dark blue long-sleeved shirt and pants, as well as a new pair of boxers, leaving the flak jacket and shuriken holsters in the scroll after resealing it, before sealing his dirty and stinky clothes into another scroll and placing them in the hip pouch. Naruto then called out to his companions, okay, you can come in now, after putting away his hip pouch. The group's leader and genius entered the room and praised Naruto on his incomplete ninja attire. How are you? You know we're leaving tonight, right? Takashi inquired. Naruto gazed at him. Yeah, well, Saya and I talked about where we're going after the meeting, and we came up with a solution, Naruto said, crossing his arms. Well, what's the solution? You didn't say what the solution is, Naruto sighed, irritated. We can get off the mainland and live on an island. Islands have natural resources, and it'd be even better if it was uncharted or undiscovered, plus it'd be safe and isolated from the walkers, Saya, standing in for her childhood friend, explained. If you're going to ask how we're going to get to an island, my parents have boats in a private section we own at the docks. They don't care if one goes missing because we have so many, she stopped Naruto. Naruto nodded and used his right backhand to suppress a yawn. Sorry, guys, I'm exhausted from the training I did earlier, so I'm going to take a nap. Wake me up when we're leaving. He receives nods from his friends and locks the door behind them, then jumps on the bed to relax his body and closes his eyes for a well-deserved rest. Night. Several hours later. A massive storm engulfed Japan's major island. Rain fell from the dark clouds above, soaking everything in its path, from the trees to the sidewalks and bridge. Back at the Takagi mansion, the estate was being showered with small droplets of water, with security as tight as ever and three of our protagonists walking to the main house after Saya confronted the people who had disparaged her father and before that, defending Kotha from Suichiro and his men and preventing them from taking their guns. Takashi was about to relax as the trio entered the mansion when he felt a hand on his shoulder and looked over his shoulder to discover Saya's hand. When Kotha spotted the two, he came to a halt and walked back towards them until he was 10 feet away. Takashi inquired after a few minutes of staring at the pink hair's eyes, "What's up, Saya? Something on your mind?" Saya closed her eyes and sighed deeply before saying, "We need to leave now." Koth was taken aback by this idea and was about to question why, but Saya cut him off. "Now is a good, no, perfect time to do so. Takashi, gather the others and meet back here in 10 minutes. Kotha, assist him in finding the others, understand?" The two nodded, and the team split up to find their friends in the group. Shizuka, Saya, Takashi, Rei, Asami, Tadashi, Alice, Kotha, Saeko, and Zeke returned to the middle of the living room 10 minutes later in their clean and washed clothing with their respective weapons in arms, with the exception of Alice and Zeke for obvious reasons. Saya was counting heads when she realized someone was missing and groaned. Takashi noticed this and asked, "What's the matter, Saya? Did you or Kotha go to wake up Naruto because I don't see him here?" Both men flinched at Saya's creepy tone and began shaking slightly. "Well, I'll wait." Well, Takashi sighed, "I thought Kotha was going to get him." "Hey, don't blame it on me," Kotha yelled back at Takashi, starting a fight between the leader and the marksman that lasted until Rei smacked them on the head, causing bumps to form. "Enough, both of you, just go wake him up," Rei said, her right hand on her waist and her weapon in her left. Takashi was about to say something when Saeko stepped in. "I'll go wake him up," Saeko said as she turned to leave but was stopped when Rei suddenly ran outside with the doors open, causing everyone to follow her, and anger quickly rose in each of the older members, especially the Miyamoto family, when Shido stood with his hands up. As the young Sojutsu expert held her bayonet-equipped rifle close to his neck, he was clearly terrified. "You've got a lot of guts to show your face here," Rei said, barely pushing her weapon to the point of tearing the former high school teacher's neck. She felt a hand on her shoulder and glanced over to her left to see her father standing motionless, so she pulled back her weapon and stepped backwards, finally stopping next to Takashi. Tadashi looked at Shido and gave him a haymaker, causing the latter to collapse to the floor, with the former climbing on top of him and mercilessly punching him. Soon after, Suichiro arrived, having been informed by one of his men who witnessed the fight and was about to intervene when Kiriko and Rei blocked his path, preventing him from doing so. "What's going on here? Why is Tadashi beating up that man?" Souchiro crossed his arms and waited for an answer, which he received from Rei, who was crying. She explained how her father had investigated Shido's father's dirty business and how, in retaliation, the latter had caused Rei to miss a year of school. Tadashi was already walking back to his wife and daughter when the young teenager completed explaining, leaving a bloodied and broken Shido on the ground. While Suichiro was thinking about what his daughter's friend had disclosed to him, Tadashi put his arms around Kiriko and Rei's shoulders and led them back to their group. The intimidating leader was approached by the beaten Shido, who tried to convince him of the Miyamoto family's lies, but he quickly silenced the teacher and banished him and his group from the house as they were infected by his evil. The Miyamoto family thanked Suichiro as Shido's party exited the mansion via school bus. When he spotted the group armed with their weapons and gear, he merely nodded and prepared to leave. "What's going on here? Why are all of you armed?" No one answered, so he asked again, but neither of them responded. "One of you should. We're leaving," Tadashi announced, shocking Suichiro, who looked at his daughter, who simply nodded in agreement. "Why?" Saya demanded, walking up to him and explaining that she and her friends would be more comfortable on their own, leaving out the part about taking one of the boats to locate an island. The intimidating Takagi man was taken aback by his daughter's response and was about to ask her another question when the lights inside the house and around the estate flickered out, alarming everyone on the porch, and soon the entire group of survivors began to emerge from inside the entrance, asking for an explanation before panic set in. Suichiro summoned one of his soldiers, who stood at attention in front of him. "Where has the power gone?" "We don't know what happened, sir. All we know is that all the power around the estate and the town began to lose power," the man responded. Suichiro narrowed his eyes as he reflected on their current predicament until he heard loud banging, causing everyone to look at the gates, and behind them were thousands of walkers who appeared out of nowhere, demanding their next meal buffet that awaited them. The Takagi leader commanded his armed men to lock the gates, so they dashed to them. The men concluded by locking 3 massive locks between the gates and stepping back with their weapons pointed at them. Back with Takashi's party, a lady in the civilian group began to panic before screaming aloud, prompting the walkers to bang on the gates even harder in search of their next meal. A slap was heard before anyone could react, and everyone turned to see Saya in front of the screaming lady, who was rubbing her left cheek in astonishment at the girl's actions. "Keep quiet. The walkers can find us because of their enhanced hearing. If we all stay quiet for a few minutes, they'll leave us alone, but we must remain completely silent," Saya instructed her group. Suichiro stopped the woman from protesting, and he ordered everyone else, including the men near the gates, to do what his daughter said. Saya was taken aback by her father's support and couldn't help but grin as everyone remained silent. From Naruto's universe, the Isle. 2 months had passed since the Ten Tails had dispatched his long-dead follower, Mizuki, to the other world, where he discovered that the Uzumaki Jinchuriki was still alive and defeated his former foe. So the towering beast had his new disciple train himself to become stronger until the time limit for the next portal opening expired, which has now passed. He summoned his follower after hearing metal clashes and seeing sparks in the night-consumed country. "You called, Master?" the man in the shadows inquired. The initial demon nodded quickly. "Yes, it is time. Do you understand your mission?" the man asked, bowing once more. "Excellent. You know what awaits you if you fail?" The ninja nodded once more, and the Ten Tails opened another portal, with the former boldly walking inside and the doorway to the next world closing, leaving only the Ten Tails alone on his private island. The beast laughed threateningly. "Let's see if Uzumaki can beat this one." HSD Universe. Takagi Estate Night. Moments changed into seconds, and seconds into minutes as the entire group of survivors remained silent to the point where all they could hear was rain pouring from the skies above and walkers banging on the gates. The survivors flinched each time the gates recoiled from the hits, growing more terrified as the girl's strategy failed. "This isn't working. We should." Takashi came to a halt as the banging halted and the walkers began to disperse from the gates, returning to the city. Takashi and everyone breathed a sense of relief after avoiding becoming a buffet for the undead and waited for 15 minutes just in case. Takashi was about to say something when a familiar portal emerged above the fountain, destroying it and shocking Takashi and everyone else in the room. "Oh no," the boy muttered to himself as he remembered the same incident 2 days before, and his fears were heightened when a silhouette of someone appeared from the doorway that closed after he exited it. The individual was tall and muscular, with pale complexion, short spiky black hair, dark eyes that lacked pupils, and small brows. He was dressed in a sleeveless black blouse with matching trousers, a waist guard, and striped wrist and leg warmers from the hidden mist. The headband with the kanji, 10 tails, that is worn sideways on his head and the bandages that cover his mouth are the most noticeable features, followed by the massive broadsword that looks like a giant butcher knife with 2 cutouts, one circle near the top and a semicircular one near the handle, and was attached to the belt slung across his chest. Everyone let out a gasp and turned to gaze at the trembling overweight adolescent. Takashi became concerned when he saw his friend. "Hey, Kotha." "Hey." Kotha glanced at him, his horrified expression still on his face. "Do you recognize him, Kotha?" "Why yes, I know who he is," Kotha said, looking from Takashi to the rest of his company. "And you all, too, he's from Naruto's world," he said, returning his gaze to that tall and menacing man. The members of his group collected information from their presentation of Naruto's past, then displayed horrified expressions as they stared at the intimidating ninja. Suichiro saw their expressions and growled at being kept in the dark, and he demanded explanations. "What is it? Do you know who this man is?" Takashi looked at him, sensing the question was aimed at him. His name is Zabuza Momochi," Takashi answered nervously, never taking his gaze away from the said ninja, while Suichiro was perplexed and further perplexed by the ambiguous information. The latter was about to ask more questions when the stranger in front of them halted him and turned his gaze to the man. "Hand over Naruto Uzumaki, and you will all live," Zabuza said emotionlessly. Except for Takashi's group and Saya's parents, the civilians talked amongst themselves and pondered what the ninja wanted with the blonde teenager. "We won't tell you where he is, and that's final," Saeko said, her hand on her sword's hilt, ready for combat despite her lack of training in the ways of Naruto's world, as Takashi and the others gripped their weapons as well. Zabuza gripped his sword's handle and took a stride forward before being stopped by a man wielding an unusual weapon and pointing at him. He looked around and saw other men with identical weapons pointing at him, forming a circle around the mist ninja. "Let go of that sword and raise your hands," one of the men said, but Zabuza kept his grip on his sword and stayed motionless, his head low, his eyes shadowed. Moments later, blood splattered across the heavens and on the sidewalk beneath Zabuza's feet, the latter holding his large sword in hand, blood dripping from the blade. The men's bodies were cut in two by their waists, and blood flowed profusely from the open wounds. The ninja looked at the large crowd of civilians who were shocked by his ruthless show and began slowly approaching them, followed by the unavoidable action. A piercing shriek pierced the vast heavens and reverberated across the city, reviving a nightmare. The vast majority of walkers within listening distance groaned as they walked to the source of the shriek due to their enhanced hearing. Back at the mansion, the teen group and civilians examined the person who blew their cover, and it comes as no surprise that it was the lady who had panicked earlier. Saya groaned and pinched her nasal bridge before looking at the motionless ninja who rested his now clean sword on his back. "Finally, the walkers are making their way back here, thanks to that banshee over there. I think walkers are the least of our concerns right now," Takashi said, aiming his shotgun as he and the others noticed the drenched mist swordsman slowly approaching them. The others prepared their weapons for a battle they would almost certainly lose. Zabuza walked as if he had all the time in the world. "I was going to let you all live once I found out where Uzumaki was. But I see you're not going to do that, which is a shame. Why don't you leave them out of this and deal with me?" said a voice, surprising everyone except Takashi's party, who were all smiling, and Zabuza, who was expressionless. The latter then glanced up to see a figure standing on top of the roof before jumping off the roof and landing softly 15 yards away in front of him. Suichiro was taken aback when the blonde teenager landed on the earth from the roof as if nothing had happened. He also noticed the odd clothing the boy was wearing: a flak jacket with a swirl on the back, a hip pouch on his lower back, a holster strapped around his right thigh, a long-sleeved dark blue shirt with matching trousers, and his trademark headband. The black blade and scabbard were also on his back, slung over his right shoulder, an odd swirl dangling from the hilt. "Oh yeah, Naruto's going to do some damage," Takashi and others said before turning to face their superhuman friend, who was dressed in leaf shinobi garb and stood passively in the rain. "It's been a long time, hasn't it, Zabuza?" Naruto finally broke the stillness, receiving a subtle nod from his undead opponent. Quote, "Are there no comments? Why is your chakra level low?" Naruto's eyes narrowed as Zabuza flexed his fingers in anticipation of the impending fight, leaving Takashi and his friends perplexed. "I was expecting your chakra strength to be very high. Does it have anything to do with those people behind you?" A dark flame-like aura surrounded Zabuza's body, quickly forming into a demon above him before dissipating. He let his chakra level rise to full strength, and it's clear that he's stronger than Mizuki. Of course Zabuza would be stronger than him, but I didn't expect his strength to be equal to mine. Not to mention his chakra looked like a demon. I guess that's how he got the moniker, Demon of the Hidden Mist, Naruto reflected as he flexed his fingers in preparation for the upcoming battle. "Is it just me, or is it difficult to breathe right now?" Ray questioned, his breathing heavy. Everyone in the room became aware of the tightness of the air around them after hearing the girl's remark, and their breathing became heavy as well. Saeko inquired about Naruto's chakra level after she had regained control of her respiration. "Naruto, what does he mean by your chakra level being low? And why did the air become heavy after that strange and sinister aura appeared around Zabuza's body?" She waited for a response from her friend but was met with silence. The purple-haired man was about to ask the query again when Naruto interrupted. "I'll explain that to you and the others later, but right now, everybody needs to get out of here, and I don't want to hear any arguments from any of you." The Uzumaki Jinchuriki heard multiple but hesitant "yes" from his friends, then Saeko and Takashi telling everyone else to follow them inside the house for a secret passage that leads them elsewhere. Naruto grinned as he prepared to stop suppressing his chakra as he noticed their chakra signatures moving away from him and Zabuza. Zabuza cocked his forehead. "Why are you smiling?" His response was a blue flame-like aura surrounding Naruto's body, and he felt his opponent's strength rise immediately. "That's better. I can't wait to fight him." Both ninja exchanged deadly glares as they became increasingly soaked by the rain. Thunder claps, lightning strikes multiple times across the heavens, and the shinobi maintains his death stare on each until Naruto breaks it. Are you ready to get started? You bet I am, Naruto. Zabuza, wielding the executioner's blade in his sword arm, replied, spurring the boy to draw his blade. Be prepared to be cut down by my executioner's blade. As the ninja waited for a sign to indicate the start of the fight, a small leaf fell to the center between them. Naruto and Zabuza vanished as soon as the leaf hit the ground, then reappeared in the sky with their swords drawn and swinging their respective blades. Naruto clenched his teeth as he and his opponent clashed blades before being pushed back by the power of the impact and landing on the ground before charging at Zabuza again with determination. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. If you did enjoy this video story, like, share, subscribe for more, and thank you all for helping support and have a great day.